Sure. I'm happy to go first. So I think I want to respond to the last two comments. So obviously agree with a lot of what you're saying there. And I mean, you said you agree with me, so obviously I agree with you back. So basically, I think you bring up a really important point that I was thinking about as Rodrigo was speaking. So as you mentioned, the IMF has social spending floors and does say, oh, you don't need to just cut social spending. Actually, we have these floors and we actually want you to increase your revenues. That is fair enough. But I think you brought up a really important point that it's not just about, putting a Band-Aid over a system. It's actually about looking at the entire kind of scope of what the IMF does. And so when you look at how the IMF imposes surcharges on countries that are excessively burdened by debt, how are you going to tell a country spend at least this much on social spending, which, by the way, it's not universal. They're advising targeted social protection. How are you going to say spend this much when at the same time you are asking that these countries repay back private creditors so much percent more than they have to pay back other creditors? How are you going to impose surcharges on the most excessively burdened countries? And then how do you still have a model that's based on giving power to the countries that have the highest GDP? So you're saying that, fiscal stability is the primary objective here, but not, rights, not financing social and economic rights. And as you say, we need to go beyond GDP. And this isn't just about a metric. So we need to go beyond GDP as a metric, but it's also about implementation and objectives. So the IMF's primary objective is growth, but why is it growth? And why do we have to leave things like public spending, the kind of social provisioning, to the whims of the market? We need to change the model of the development model that we're trying to achieve. And so going beyond just metrics, also making sure that those metrics are actually implemented in policy making in a way that changes what we value in our societies. So, we want to build a care-based economy that's about putting value on care at the center and not just growth, and making sure that that's actually captured in policy making, mainstreamed by ministries of finance, central banks, and not just looking at it as kind of, let's try to achieve GDP growth with a bit of social spending on the side and, increasing gender equality on the side. No, those need to be primary objectives. And so it's about shifting the development model and not just the metric. And so just one last comment. I think the last respondent there, you asked, how much do we have left? I think that was a really good way of putting it. So you're asking that countries spend this much on social spending without asking the question of actually how much money do these countries have left after you're telling them to do all these measures that basically restrain their fiscal space. So yes, I think essentially just want to wrap it up by saying that the IMF, yes, they might be stipulating social spending floors, but I think as I think this was mentioned in an Oxfam report, Fig Leaf of over austerity, the IMF actually advises that social spending is cut by 4 times as much as they advise on spending floors. So that's a big problem, obviously.
Guys, no?